Yo, what's up everyone? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for a little new to me album review. Just talking about the basic CD here. Post-monthly haul. This is something moving forward we'll try to do. I'll try to do a review for one of these albums. New to me, recently acquired. And you know what? Our artist of the month this month is Ozzy. So what better album to cover than the one I just picked up from him? I never owned this until a couple months ago. The Ultimate Sin from 1986. Time to give this thing a little attention. I'll give you my brief history, really lack thereof, with this album. But we'll get into the whole history of the album. It being made, released, etc. Then we'll go track by track, review each song. I'll give the whole thing a 1 to 10 rating at the end there when we're done. And you know what? Probably a kind of an interesting thing, in my opinion, that someone like me who's a big fan of all this kind of music, I bowed on certain people at certain times. And once that glam era was starting to happen, starting to overtake our favorite bands, I took sides. Guys I was running with, we were getting into heavier stuff. Metallica was my favorite band by this point. Into Motorhead, Merciful Fate, even heavier stuff. Stormtroopers of Death, you get the idea. So, this guy was not really high on my list anymore at all. After being my favorite artist he was my first favorite artist, probably late 81 I started collecting up until right after I saw him live, my first concert, January of 84. Not even about a month later, and I was into Metallica. So it was probably due to happen anyway, honestly. Ozzy had been my favorite for over 2 years. All right, so let's get into the Ultimate Sin era. Right after the Bark at the Moon tour, Ultimate Sin era, another typical for the Ozzy camp, another choppy one, another chaotic one. The lineup plan going into the album was to be Ozzy, Jake E. Lee returning on guitar. Bob Daisley was going to stick around after touring the Bark at the Moon album and play bass again. Jake and Bob would be the main writers. Jimmy DeGrasso was the drummer slated to record Ultimate Sin. He's been in a million bands since the 80s. Now, delays happening right away. As soon as 85 starts, Ozzy has another stint in rehab, Betty Ford Center for Alcohol and Substance Abuse. Then things kind of put on hold as far as Ultimate Sin recording with the Black Sabbath. There's talk of a reunion with Ozzy, of course. Then they play Live Aid. That only fuels things. At the end of the day, it doesn't come together. By the time all that had passed, I should say, Bob Daisley and Jimmy DeGrasso both out. I think Bob and Ozzy had a falling out of some sort. Not sure what happened with DeGrasso not staying involved. But bassist Greg Chasin brought in. He claims to have contributed to some of the writing of the album. Dismissed after a few weeks, apparently. He would reunite later on with Jake E. Lee in Badlands. New drummer coming in is now Randy Castillo. So that's the lineup that would be recording the Ultimate Sin. Jake on guitar, bassist Phil Susan, drummer Randy Castillo, and on keyboards Mike Moran. So now you have some more nonsense going on with the whole publishing and crediting. Jake comes to the sessions with tons of music, apparently most of the music for this album, but learning his lesson from the Bark at the Moon sessions, refuses to submit anything until he has a solid contract in hand. And initially, Bob Daisley was not credited for contributing to the album, which of course he did, and later that was corrected. First pressings, apparently, of this album don't have Daisley credited for these songs. Later pressings would. So, gave you the lineup for the album. So most of the lyrics end up coming from Bob Daisley. Jake ends up writing the majority of the music. Now, for producer, a new producer to the Ozzy camp, Ron Nevison, who previously had worked with UFO, the Lights Out album, Thin Lizzy's Nightlife, a couple of Jefferson Starship albums to his credit, and I think the first 2 albums by Survivor. So he has a decent pedigree of hard rock and borderline metal, if you want to call Lizzie and UFO metal. The album gets recorded in late 1985 in London and Paris. I believe most of the music's London, and I think the vocals are Paris. And they'll be called Killer of Giants. And that ended up getting changed at the last minute. And I think Ozzy's the one who changed it. I'm not sure about that. Released in January of '86 in the US, and I think 2 weeks later, early February in the UK. Hit number 6 in the US on Billboard Top 200. Was platinum within months. Eventually go double platinum, but not until 1994. 3 singles released from this album. Shot in the Dark, the first single. Title track, Ultimate Sin, also a single. And then Lightning Strikes, third and final single out of this album. We'll get to it in a second. My history with this album, like I told you, pretty brief. Was not really in any kind of mood to even like this album. I have to be honest. I was not in any shape to even give it any kind of fair shake at the time. I already told you why. It was getting heavier. Metallica, Motorhead, Saxon, Merciful Fate, Anthrax, SOD. That's where I was headed at this point. Someone dressed like Liberace. Really, just the photos, the pre-photos or press photos that were coming out of these guys ahead of this album was enough to steer me away. However, I did have somebody tape it for me. Some guy I went to high school with. And, I got it home. I listened to Ultimate Sin. All right, this is a pretty good song. Very next song I didn't really like. And I don't, just didn't even, that was it. Right off, Now, I did keep the tape and played it a few months later and listened to the whole thing. And I just kind of wanted to make sure before I taped over it that I wasn't missing anything. And I didn't think I was, to be honest with you. Here we are 38 years later, right? And those prejudices are long gone. So let's go track by track to this and see what I think. Practically brand new to me album by Ozzy from 1986. Ozzy's 4th solo album. So I do have a little of exposure to this other than those couple of playings back then, or really one playing and a couple of songs. Kansas City Complete. Got this thing a year and a half ago or so. Listened to it once, I think, only. Show that they made the video out of, but this is a great sounding soundboard bootleg, And you got multiple songs from Ultimate Sin on here. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't really dig them. I really didn't. That for whatever reason, the title track isn't on here, which sucks, because that's great. You do have Shot in the Dark even on here. That is. I just wasn't into really much else. Shot in the Dark I always thought was okay. Even remember seeing the video a couple times back in the day. And then this came as a bonus with that Kansas City, the video, Ultimate Ozzy. Which, it's okay, but, that's basically that visual I was telling you about. It was a turnoff to me back then. I watched it a few years ago, actually, because I have it off of VHS, burned over, just as a collectible kind of thing, not something I was dying to have. That's really it. So let's get into the record itself. Track by track, tell you what my ass has to say about it. So the title track, The Ultimate Sin. It's great. I always like this song. Heavy, catchy, air guitar fuel in there by Jake. Good solos, melodic vocals, melodic choruses. What doesn't this song have? It's a great song. I think it's one of the best songs. It's one of my favorite songs by Ozzy Osbourne. Maybe top 5. I'll definitely go top 8. All right. It's just how much I like this song. Ultimate Sin is a great song. So right off the bat, but I kind of knew that going in. The more interesting stuff is what's coming up next. Secret Loser. Nice mid-tempo metal song. Nice layering of the instruments. I'm noticing right off the bat here. Nothing's too overbearing. There's some keyboard presence here. It's not too bad. And considering we're early 86, potential lies for that to be a problem. It's not. And really everything sounds good here. I think the production on here is really good. The song, I didn't like it much at first. Now that I guess, between hearing it once in 86 and once a year or two ago on that KC and about 3 times the last month or two, I like this song, I have to admit. I don't think it's awesome, but I'm going to say thumbs up for sure on Secret Loser. I like the little, I don't know if you call it a riff or a hook, right after the loser, da-na-na-na, the secret loser, da-na-na-na. I like that little riff, and that chorus is stuck in my head. I like this song a lot. Never Know Why. First, we got to get rid of the elephant in the room, all right? Because I really liked the main riff of this song years ago, probably about 15 years ago when I first got this Blue Oyster Cult out. All right, anyone following me here? All right, because it's on the first album, which I have, but I'm just showing you this is where I first heard Before the Kiss of Redcap from the self-titled Blue Oyster Cult debut. I mean, that is the same riff. That guitar riff in Never Know Why is blatantly ripped off of that song. I mean, do I have to put a link here? Come on, man. How, now in 86, I wouldn't have known that. All right, I didn't have that early Blue Oyster Cult album at the time. But, I mean, somebody involved in recording this album, someone in the band, Ron Nevison, somebody in the studio should have said, dude, that's a riff from Blue Oyster Cult, right? Now, I'll be honest with you, I kind of like how Jake does it better. It's more distorted, hangs longer in the air kind of thing. They make full use of that riff, but it is a blatant rip-off. I don't know if a riff qualifies as plagiarism, but I mean, I don't really know, court-wise and legally. But all right, that's out of the way. The keyboards, you got to have them in '86, and I have to say, I think they sound good here. The keys behind a lot of this music here kind of hold this one chord. And it changes now and then, but it's like a steady, eerie kind of sound in the background. It's a solid rocker overall, with the keyboard presence not a problem. It's not overdone. Again, nice mix of instruments. I think the production is really good here. The keys, like I said, are cool sound and not 80s corny. Yeah, that riff is there. I'm going to think of Blue Oyster Cult every time I hear it, but the song overall rocks. Like I said, a more rockin' version of that riff. Metal version, basically. It's a good one. I'm into this album so far. 3 songs in. Never Know Why, and Secret Loser, and the title track. So let's head to the middle third of this album. I think you can break this album kind of up into thirds. Thank God for the Bomb. This one really just doesn't do it for me in any of the ways that the first 3 songs really do. Although, I still have to say, great layering of the main and accent instruments. There's some interesting quality arrangements here too. It's not just your standard formula. There are nice little pre-chorus parts, bridges, things that pop up just once and don't repeat in spots. So it's I think it's a well-produced album, honestly. Jake's tone on here, the guitar tone overall is great. I think it's his best, better than Bark at the Moon. It's a little just nastier, kind of a dirty metal tone. And that sounds really good too. His playing, of course, is solid. The limitations of this album are going to be the songs, if they're already. And I think Thank God for the Bomb is one of them. The first one, I don't care about that chorus, just repeating the title like that over and over. But I have to say, excellent sonic quality on this record, man. I think it sounds really good. 5th song in, Never. I'm trying to remember much about this in detail. I do like the opening rhythm. That's really cool. And Jake sounds awesome. And then I like the half-time beat behind him. So musically, it starts out great. But then the chorus area of the song is just so different than the verses leading up to it. And there really isn't a proper chorus here, And maybe that could have helped put the song over, but I have to say it's just another okay song, and maybe a little better than Thank God for the Bomb, but not by a whole lot. Next one, we got Lightning Strikes. I think this became the 3rd and final single from the album. Lightning Strikes. I think Ozzy says Lightning Strikes again. Good heavy riff opening, but unfortunately that's kind of like the best part of the song to me. Now, there is this chorus, pre-chorus and chorus part that kind of transform it from heavy to not heavy, and that's like the downfall of the song, I think, because it's just the synthesizers have their biggest presence on the whole album, I think, here. Biggest sort of 80s feel of the whole record. And not in a good way. There's this sort of post-chorus keyboard hook that sounds, this is the stuff I was afraid of back in 86, that I thought this album would sound like all over the place. And it really doesn't, but it does kind of here. And it's just an okay song. I don't really like this chorus again. And the fact that it gets this, wimpy keyboard kind of riff following the chorus doesn't help. So it's a promising start to this one. This song is that heavy riff, but kind of falls apart for me. It's just okay. None of these songs are bad. But so far I have a front 3 songs that are great, or really good. And then the middle 3 that are just mediocre to me. So 7th song in, we go Killer of Giants. Now, this one, I don't know if I ever recalled an album that does this. Like what I was just talking about. It kind of starts here and sort of hits a valley and then slopes back up again. But this album kind of does that. Almost in that exact kind of direction. Killer of Giants can't help but draw comparisons to Blizzard of Oz's Revelation Mother Earth. You got this sort of, it's almost 6 minutes. Semi-epic. It's the longest tune on the album. The anti-nuclear, what are we doing to Mother Earth sort of theme, just like Revelation. Asking the same questions. How can we possibly do this to ourselves and all that. Same sort of topic here. You have the multiple different parts in both of these songs, acoustics, full band, sort of heavy break. Now I'll tell you something. Let's talk about Revelation Mother Earth real quick. All those ingredients, everything we just talked about, that sort of mini epic length, multiple different parts, almost like kind of a suite, right? Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz band. Sounds like a sure thing. Except that the song just kind of lies there for me. I just never, I want to love everything Ozzy did, especially back then. Except that I just didn't. And really, I don't think I ever met anyone, not Stan I went to the concert with, cared for this song. Not my cousin, who agrees with me on a lot of things musically. He never cared for it. Like, it just doesn't go where it seems like it should go. And Killer of Giants, I think, does. I think it achieves what Revelation Mother Earth was going for. The cool acoustic electric opening part, which sounds double-tracked. It sounds double-tracked, like an acoustic on one track and an electric on the other. And that sounds really cool, mixed together. At the second verse, how the notes that Ozzy's singing, that melody, it just bounces from highs to low notes like that. Really cool and a very addictive kind of melody, And all of that seg perfectly into the really catchy title and chorus, I really love this song. It's a really damn good one. Now, I just read that Jake wrote the intro to this as a completely separate piece. He had no idea what to do with it. So when they were working on Killer of Giants and it needed an intro, he pulled this out of the hat. So he said it was one of his proudest moments of songwriting, actually, because it was one of the few times him and a singer sort of wrote something together. So they kind of came up with that together. One of Jake's 5 most career-defining moments that he reported to Guitar Player magazine 2021. Kind of cool to read that up. So, man, when I do these episodes, I'm learning all kinds of stuff. They're kind of fun for me to do. Killer of Giants, really good. Pretty damn good song there. Now, Fool Like You. It's decent, mid-tempo kind of song. Another kind of long one, 5 minutes, 20 seconds. It's not bad, but there's not a whole lot memorable in this one for me. This one kind of more along the lines of those middle 3. Now, we end up with Shot in the Dark. I think it's another excellent song. Pop metal, you could call it that. But so what about titles? Good song's a good song, And Really kind of remember the video, like I said, back in the day. I still think the video is pretty cool. I saw it not too long ago. Kind of dismissed it a little bit at the time because of I already been through that, along with the album. And I can tell you something, Shot in the Dark didn't get a ton of airplay in Philadelphia. I heard it a few times, and then I might have only heard it another 4 or 5 times ever. A total of 6 or 7 times maybe ever in Philadelphia. So I know this song did well overall. Probably did better as a video than it ever did on the radio in Philadelphia. Now I would have noticed, because I did like this song. I would have liked to have heard it more at the time. Interesting little footnote: the 1995 remaster and subsequent versions of Ultimate Sin shortened that Shot in the Dark by 10 seconds. 4 bars of music. For whatever reason. I guess that's the single edit. I'm not even sure. But overall, guys, I'll give this album about a 7.7 because nothing on here sucks, but I would say there's about 4 just okay songs. Okay, good songs. They're not bad. I don't love them, but Ultimate Sin's great. Shot in the Dark's great. Killer of Giants I'm now a fan of. And also like Secret Loser. Really like that one. Never Know Why. That originally, when I heard that on the Kansas City show, the first thing that came to my mind was they specifically wrote this song with this cheesy chorus just to have as an arena rock anthem. So I had that sort of chip on my shoulder when I first heard it, like it's the only reason the song was written. Now that's, I guess, worn off, safe to say, because now Never Know Why is definitely a favorite of mine, despite its plagiarism, ripping off that riff from Blue Oyster Cult. But overall, I have to say that I think the production on here is great. I think all the instruments are heard clearly. What more can you ask for? Jake's guitar tone on here is filthy. Love it. His playing's solid. I think he's a looser player live, but you're recording an album, got to have some level of control, I'm sure. Now, whether this was the band or the producer or a combination of both, I love the arrangements on here. They do some nice things with the bridges, little pre-chorus things that keep things interesting. Keyboard presence, not too overbearing on here. That was definitely a concern of mine going into this. So, overall, I'd have to say I think this producer, Ron Nevison, did a great job. Now, Ozzy disagrees. He's on record calling this his least favorite solo album. If he could remix any one of them, it would be this one, is what he said in the past, feeling that the album, quote unquote, all sounded the same. And furthermore, that Ron Nevison lacked an imagination. So, interestingly, this is the only one of his first 4 albums that weren't remastered and reissued in 2002. The Shot in the Dark writing credit, publishing credit, bullshit, suspected with that as one of the main causes. Very noticeable that the Ultimate Sin as an album, very either underrepresented or not represented at all on most of Ozzy's compilations. So the bullshit just continues on with this guy, especially Shot in the Dark. I don't think that's on any compilation or not. Final word on this album, man, I think it's solid. Really good one. I'm glad to have it in the collection. Don't love the whole thing, maybe a little bit more than half, but overall not bad. Even the songs that I don't love, pretty darn good. Always cool to hear Jake playing guitar. Always cool to have more Ozzy in your collection, even if it takes 38 years. Next up, guys, we'll be reviewing a double CD Roger Waters from the 87 Radio Chaos tour. What is the name of this? Radio Chaos on the Road. 2 CDs from 2 different shows. Go over the whole shebang for you. Also a bunch of bonus discs that came with this thing. 2 different other shows as bonus discs. 3 CDs each. So we'll talk all things Roger Waters, Radio Chaos on the Road. Next up on Classic Rock and Metal Review. Guys, I'll catch you all later.